G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talk Stuff Ukraine War Update 43rd of January 2026. I'm your host, the author David Applegate, and as the war continues, I shall continue to bring you the unbiased reality on the battlefield. Unlike Captain Skyshield, you may be lured into a false sense of security, especially those in Europe who believe that Zelensky is protecting them from the bear, that Ukraine's Sky Shield is more powerful than ever. The propaganda may have been dropped like a hot potato, but I remember when Ukraine was going to protect everybody from the Russian, and that the war was going to be over in 2023, and Ukrainian forces were going to storm Moscow and bring the Putin to the justice. Now, of course, Ukraine has proposed joint aerial shield as Europe, this defense shield, 2023, it's back, baby! Yeah, back in December. Of course, when Ukraine proposed joint shield, America said, no, we're not going to fund it. And Zelensky went to boo-hoo and scrapped the peace deal and went running away to the UK and Europe, and you had this whole stitched together stealing of the Russian assets. 200 billion, remember, 200 billion to fund the war for the next 2 years. Well, it turns out they were 50 billion short, so Ukraine comes begging to America. America, give me the 50 billion. No, you don't have to give me the 50 billion, but I'm the Captain Sky Shield. And the Putin, he's the villain, he's the sneaky Putin. And Trump says, get out of here, you bum. So we're back where we started. Zelensky will not accept a peace deal. He wants to be Captain Sky Shield. After Poland and Romania, of course, others have sorry, it's the other way round. He went to London to urge that European nations urgently build this Sky Shield. They've been talking about this for how many, off and on now. This is the big scam. Remember, they did this with climate change. They did this with oceans rising. They did this with the asteroid. Remember when the asteroid was going to kill you? And then it missed you like a million miles away. And it's like, he wasn't even close. Hey! Even Putin is more accurate than that. With one eye closed, he can shoot better. You know, this is the problem. Alright? They play on people's fears, and the women, they go, oh, you protect me. And the cocks and the white knights go, of course, madam, we will protect you. Now, can you let me have a look at your heels? Or let me polish the shields. Now, the Zelensky has changed. He's no longer got the Captain Sky Shield t-shirt. He's no longer the Captain the Sky Shield. Captain Ukraine. You know, the Zelensky t-shirt business is closed. For now. But there was a Shmuel, the superhero, the Captain Ukraine, the sloppy Ukrainian, the t-shirt. But of course, when the t-shirt with the clan nose came out, he was not very happy. He was not happy at all. And of course, did you know yesterday they celebrated the nuts thing you see here, folks, invasion of Ukraine. The liberation, they called it. Actually, it's very weird. But of course, the war briefing is not good. Russia has captured more territory in 2025 than 2023 and 2024. Now, 2022, they had captured more, but they lost a lot. But they put out a headline today. The Russia lost 400,000 troops with 0.8% of Ukraine. What? Actually, according to British intelligence, the Russian army has captured 5,600 square kilometres, nearly 1% of Ukrainian territory, in 2025. Wait a minute! So the 2022 was the biggest, of course, but what they're not telling you is the total percent, but what they're not telling you is, you notice the number of dead is the missing? Oh, turns out that Ukraine was lying. No, Russia did not lose 400,000. No, 40,000 this year. Whereas Ukraine is the one who's lost 40,000 this year, 400,000 this year. So Russia 40, Ukraine 400, and they go, whoopsies. And they thought they'd get away with it. But remember, yesterday when Russia said it, no, everybody said lies, Russian disinformation. Of course, today when the British say it, it's oh no, panic. Now, as there is panic in Europe, 15 countries have gathered around Ukraine, I mean Zelensky, and I mean in Poland, for a flurry of talks about NATO and the EU and how they need to go it with alone. Meanwhile, the USA delegation, joined by video link, and Vance told them to knock it off with all these secret meetings. You think you can hold a meeting without us knowing about it? You silly wankers. You Eurofascists. You want us to fund $50 billion for Captain Sky Shield. And that's what they're doing. See, they couldn't get the $50 billion out of you by Zelensky asking for it. So now they go around the back and say, they reach around the back pocket, start feeling around and groping and say, don't worry, honey, I'm not going for your bra, I'm going for your wallet. However, despite the flurry of efforts to end the war, now Zelensky's playing musical chairs, the deck of the Titanic, as his previous chief of staff had to go on a sudden holiday due to the sudden urge to withdraw cash from the bank without the asking. Of course, the intelligence officer who's supposed to be protecting the bank, he no evil, see no evil, speaking to no evil of the money collectors. This, the money collecting, the very important finger, and the very important hand for the putting of the yarmulke. But, of course, Kylo, what an honest man, he's an intelligence officer. Yes, that means he lies for a living. But of course he didn't see this one coming. No, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil of Ukraine. No, they didn't see the massive $100 million withdrawal. No. Noticed, I see nothing. So he gets promoted for seeing nothing. Meanwhile, Andrei Yamek takes the foil. As raiders investigators raid his house as part of a sweeping production probe. It is the process is the punishment. Well, even though he's the fall guy, we cannot say who really took the money. Can we now, Zelensky? No, you're the friends. No, we do not say. We do not know. Hear no evil, speak no evil. Yes. So Zelensky is the good guy. He's the Captain Sky Shield. There's no way he stole. But yes, Ukraine, of course, is the winning. And by the winning, I mean the people in the settlement here and now over there. Why? Because we're the winning. And of course, he keeps coming on Ukrainian television every day and says, we are winning this war, my friends. Soon all your sacrifices will come to fruition, and the oil will push the orcs back to Mordor. And don't listen to that man who says, Hans, are we the baddies? So, British intelligence. No. The military. We cannot say British intelligence. Why? Because everybody bursts out laughing. Now, I'm not saying they're clowns in America, but they have been clowns for some time, and it's a clown show. They have a lot of clowns, and they have a lot of disasters, and they have a lot of mustache men from the middle the mustache men. You know, they're not British intelligence. They're a combination of several countries who have divvied up the United Kingdom and keep it united for now. But sooner or later, the mask is off. And Keir Starmer, just like, will be one day sitting in the cuck chair like Liz Truss and saying, well, when I was Prime Minister, I thought I was the Prime Minister, but it turns out the Chancellor of the Exchequer and the House of Lords, the Crown, the banks, the 28 foreign ambassadors, the 48 men in the back room with the WEF, they ran the Britain. Who knew? I didn't. I was just Prime Minister. I was Prime Minister. So, you know, I think Rishi Sunak, you know, yes, elections, they are so tedious. This is the problem for the Tories, and the Tories really need to distance themselves. And by distance themselves, I mean say, why are we the British Indian Party and why is Labour the British Pakistani Party? Where is the British People Party? So what's left of Britain expects to see more Russian prestige equipment. What is prestige equipment? These are the big war toys that cost lots of the money. So these aren't bought with rubles, these are bought with dollars. So they're very important weapons. They are for protecting the money, of course. You know, don't think that Russia isn't it. Everybody, it's about protecting the money. You know? Because without the money, you cannot be the prestige player in the club. Yeah? You get the message? So, we have the Putin is putting out prestige equipment. Advanced T-14s. What do you mean advanced? I thought T-14. Look. These are all prototypes, test models, public display machines for when men want to show off their compensation. So, these have not been seen in combat. Lie! 2023 T-14s, 2024 T-14s. They conducted 3 separate occasions of what they call combat field testing, and Putin said these tanks, they fail on the production time, they fail on the production quality test, and they fail on the combat test. So why are they saying there's going to be more prestige equipment? Because the T-14, they've taken a lot of the material science of the T-14, some of the electronic warfare of the T-14, as they're putting it into the T-90, the T-90, the bear with the big bush, the big brass knuckle bear. Yes, the T-90 Ultra, it's got a lot of letters after it, but it's a T-90M Sashi. T-90, I think it comes from the Russian word. It means connect or something. You know, you could take off this turret, put on that turret, take out this engine, put in that engine. It's a plug-and-play tank. And they decided that the 14 gun, which is going to use 2 types of barrels. One is the smoothbore anti-tank gun, and the other one is the mobile artillery gun. And the mobile artillery gun is the one that really has them worried, because it is hitting harder than ever. But it is not the only prestige weapon we may see this year. What we have, however, is this year saw the Russian glide bomb revealed, and it is no longer a propeller-driven. It is no longer a slap together. This is a smooth production model taken from recent tests, real life footage right there. That is the destruction of what's left of the center of Pavlovsk before the Russians moved in. This is how Pavlovsk was, and Hulipol and Bakhmut fell, is that the Russians said, no more center of town. You look, 1, 2, 3, 4 by 4 blocks, not 2 by 2. I said, maybe it was 2 by 2. No, turns out that this is the mini nuke, okay? This is a subatomic, yet at the same time the powerful enough explosive to wipe out multiple city blocks. And this is the range has increased from 50 to 300. This isn't the Onsk. This is just the glide bomb. The Onsk carries 10. Okay, this is a the Onsk delivers the same warhead over 10 times the range. This is turning air fuel bombs, America's FAE, the big, I destroyed Baghdad. Ha! Says, so, yes, it may be a catch-up with America of the 90s, but it's still an existential threat because America, is looking at this and going, well, the Russians are advancing faster than we thought, and so are the Europeans. Because it's not just a new gun, a new sidearm, imagine a 9mm that doesn't jam. There's all people out there who are going, oh, my precious farms, you mean there's a gun that won't take them off? Of course, the new sniper rifle. Of course, you got the ghillie suit and the scopes that go with it. Of course, the Su-37. Ha! We're past that. We're up to the Su-35 is a test model. It is, and the Su-37 is the same. It's an in-between model for the deployment of the Su-57. Expected to make its debut sometime this year, although this was unveiled 6 months ago. But, new cruise missiles for the Su-25s, keeping them, making them a lively export model now. Russian aviation, it looks like they are going to take over in the mid to small carrier market, particularly in China, where Russian aviation is not just cheaper, but the preferred customer. And, of course, India as well, which would hit Boeing by about maybe 13 to 15%. It's not a big drop, but for Russia, it's a big gain. Now, another big gain Russia has is, of course, floated the warship, which was sunk with the aid of British intelligence from Snake Island. I mean, the legendary, the SBO, and the SBS set up on 30 men on Snake Island and torpedoed with remote drones the Russian warship, and then said, hey, we upgraded the submarine, and then made jokes about sinking it for 2 years. Meanwhile, Russia just went out, refloated it, and took it back to Sevastopol without any opposition. And what happened to the men on Snake Island? Well, they had one of these tested on them, of course. And the British just went, oh, we had some training accidents. What a coincidence. Now, of course, the Russian infantry fighting vehicle is back. 2 years ago, they scrapped it, but they brought it back. And the BTR, of course, recently also 700. So BTR is, you got the infantry fighting vehicle with the Russian 25 or 35 millimeter, but you also got the Quadmatic, which is the quad version of the ZU 23 millimeter automatic. So you got the semi-automatic, and I think the 35 is an automatic. The 25 is on the 25 millimeter cannon is on the BTR model, which is basically an infantry fighting vehicle with 4 comets, 2 on each side, and it's got the that slope turret. Looks like a T-80 after a few rounds with Rocky. And of course, their aviation is not alone. Where new tanks, new aviation. Of course, they are getting new artillery, and of course, the artillery is the one that is doing the Russians the most damage, and that is the 2S-43 Mulva, as in wheeled. Now, this replaces or is an upgrade of the 2S Master MATSA beta. Now, it was a beta weapon. This is the alpha version. This, of course, is reporting as a 152 self-propelled howitzer. It's this one commonly comes on an 8x8 truck, but there is a tank chassis model. Now, this is primarily going to begin replacing the Gdansk, the early version of the Gdansk, but this is the Gdansk beta gun. The 36, the 43 replaces is a new 2A36, I believe, is the previous model. But, extended range, active shells, 30 kilometers. But they have anti-drone screens. That is the is it featured here? Okay, here you have the top mount smoke launcher. But here where you see these boxes, that's electronic warfare kits. And then you've got the feeder kit. But on the some models I've seen, these boxes come off and they are replaced with you've got a turret with a usually a 12.7 millimeter, but it's a turret automatic. But there is also an extended cab model with the bigger turret with the twin ZU. They are basically what is coming out and what they're testing are going to be two different things. Now, the interesting part, of course, is what about the helicopters? Well, the Alligator is being upgraded. It is back in military operation, but they've yet to unveil its lookalike. Now, this is the short crew cab model, or what they would call the basic field model. It's basically, it goes out, it shoots, it comes back home. It's got nothing, none of the bells and whistles. Those have been tested separately. What the final production model will look like is probably going to be several iterations later. But one thing is, it's got the bigger the gun, which gives it the bigger range, and it's a semi-automatic. The crew see to its deployment, but as you can see, it has a belt or some sort of feed mechanism as it's firing, collecting the when they collect the shells and trade them. But it appears that, no, I don't. Yeah. So the gun loads and fires through the mechanism, but it's not hooded. But there you see the mechanism on the side there. It does somehow feed through some mechanical loader. There's the loader arm. Now it's hydraulic recoil control. There's the flash shield, combat shield deployed. It also has combat netting and other things they're testing. They also got remote gunnery. That's what this guy's looking at. But the interesting part is, remember the D-74? Don't think you do. Now they're reporting it here as a 122 from North Korea. It's 170, but neither here nor there. But the big part is the Russia's disappointed with the Korean anti-tank gun, and Kim Il-jong is apparently a little bit unhappy with someone. And when he's unhappy, he sits there with his arm around him and tells him how unhappy he is. And then someone will come along with the baseball bat and do the recreation of the scene from what's the movie? The one where the fake tough guy from New York plays the mobster Al Capone, and he expresses his disappointment with the baseball bat. And that Kim Il-jong loves that movie, He loves that scene. He plays it over and over again. And in real life, too. So, you think the Putin, there's always worse than the Putin. Now, of course, you may think, the Putin, he hangs out with the bad guys. So, how many books did the Nazis ban? 4,000. How many books have been banned since then? 40,000. Ooh. And of course, let's look. If you do not want to open up the book of the war crimes, because I'm telling you, you don't want to go there, particularly with the second nuclear bombing, or even how they chose the first. But that is how hypocrisy works, isn't it? Rules for thee, but not for thee. But of course, here's a bit of transparency you don't see in the West, where directors and managers of defense companies are on trial for disrupting defense contracts. Whoa. Putting people on trial? I thought the Putin was just as bad as North Korea. No, the Putin... have you ever heard in America of a defense contractor going to jail, let alone being put on trial? Russia is trying to rub your nose in it, and so far they're rubbing very good. They love the noticing, by the way. They're really commending America for all the noticing. But you're not doing enough of the jailing. Now, of course, Kiev was hit with a missile, but they have not reported it. Now, it's not the only one. There was a lot of attacks, Kharkiv and Dnipro. Now, Dnipro again, Kharkiv and Dnipro like favourite targets, same with Sunni. Now, activity around the map is a bit, it's below zero. You're not going to get a lot of action in the last 24 hours. But some of this is 48-hour holdovers, and there's action on the map, mostly sporadic fighting. Most of these gains are from the last week. Russia just consolidating its positions and holding off Ukrainian counterattacks in an attempt to retake Seversk. Failed miserably. The Russian bear trap here, of course, going off again, and Ukrainians failing miserably. Now, the Chavez Yar, remember the big counter-offensive at Chavez Yar that was coming a month ago. December has passed, and Zelensky has stopped talking about the liberation of Chavez Yar. And of course, there's the bomb that was dropped on Kovenskia. there's no mention of that, nor the fact that Russia's made advances, but not much. Most of these, of course, are just consolidating positions given the collapse of the Ukrainian lines in some areas. But Russia is very cautious to advance and also have higher priorities than a few empty fields, which may just be targeted overnight with deployment of bomblets. So why camp out in empty fields waiting for the Ukrainian counterattack when you know it's coming by air or missile, and you'd rather be in your trenches where you have air defences. That's why Russia is slow to advance. Most depends on air defences and and of course, air defences are not just something you can up and move. You know, these are very expensive pieces of equipment and radar, which Ukraine would love to kill or capture. Priority being capture. After all, they want to be the air defence capital of Europe. But they can only produce S-300s. Russia is routinely deploying S-350s, S-400, S-450s, S-550s, and has stepped up production and testing of the S-550A, a advanced booster rocket version of the S-550 that could go up into space and nuke satellites. Allegedly nuke satellites. So the bear trap has gone off at the Povest train station, clocking in at a lot of kills, probably coming close to 1,000 just on their own. But we don't know about the rest of the battlefield. But most of it's only going to be between 200 and 500 overall. These are small, sporadic engagements. Russia using high-pressure tactics to make a little bit of a play here on Omsk, with a bit of a hit here on the south end of the airstrip, the village, that seems to be an empty village with a straight road that's 2.4 kilometres long. Just so happens to be the suitable airfield for, say, advanced fighter jet. Who builds a straight road in the middle of nowhere? How many straight roads do you see with housing along it? That could be easily dismantled into and replaced with what they call them, those aerodrome hoods or whatever. Yeah. So it's getting clocked in. And, of course, it's not the only place getting clocked in, but most is right here along the river, with Russia conducting multiple river crossings, again to prove to the Putin that the river crossings are not just once off, but they have indeed. Now, of course, Russia has conducted river crossings before, but again, during World War II, they had mostly American equipment, and they have not. Of course, modern American equipment it would, but they don't have modern American equipment. They had World War II equipment, and a lot of their big heavy tanks were not able to cross the Volga, let alone the rest of Russia. So yeah, that's why the T-34 became the most common tank, and all the way up to the T-90, they hit that 48 limit, and they start to go, a lot of bridges can't handle this weight, we're going to stop. So that's why the honeycomb and the composite technology is so important from the T-14 to bring over to the T-90 to bring its weight down. But for the river crossings, mostly Russia relied on waterproofing their tanks. But as you know, snorkeling and waterproofing is great to do when you have the luxury of controlling the area. But for a frontline advance, Russia has never had river crossing that for rapid deployment since World War II. And now it appears that, in the past, they relied on cheating, and that is by hiding concrete blocks and putting ramps over ramp bridges or pontoons and interconnecting them over rivers. Of course, that helps if Ukraine hadn't blown some of them up, of course, but now they're able to deploy pontoon bridges inflate, carry the beams across, and put in enough to carry up to 50 tons. Takes, I believe, about 24 hours. I know that doesn't sound great, but if you're under fire and you're fighting for a riverbank and you drop a pontoon, drop a few things, secure the area and cross, and then you get men across on the light pontoons, and then they basically bring up the heavy equipment behind them in the secure area, bring across the infantry fighting vehicles, anti-tank, and then they build it up to the point where they now have multiple bridges able to cross tanks. This is, of course, many militaries have done this before. This is nothing new, but for Russia to do it without foreign equipment is why it's so important that they demonstrate to Europe that Europe's river defense won't protect them from Russia. This is Putin sending the message that you're thinking of absorbing the Russian attacks and blowing bridges as you retreat is not going to stop the Russian army. And so rethink a war with Russia. This is not a direct threat. That is just what the media wants you to think, right? Now, the UK is expecting more equipment, but they're saying, the advanced T-14. No, this is the T-14 is absent for a reason, because it is Russia's most expensive tank. It's not expensive as the Korean tank or the Polish tank, but it is an expensive tank from Russia's perspective, and for that price they can do better with artillery. Now, the point of the few tanks that they've put into 700 BTRs and IFVs, they're putting money into 100 T90 variants with the T14 gun. Now, the T14 gun, it allegedly has been tested to be able to fire multiple slugs that can detrack and disable an Abrams. Remember, an Abrams is just built to survive multiple impacts. It cannot, cruise shock. It cannot prevent things like turret dismounting or detracking or blinding. Now, allegedly, Ukraine is also developing this new drone. Look up American hacksaw and you go, wait a minute. Oh, it's a hacksaw buzzsaw. And you go, wait a minute, I've seen this before. Yeah, no, Ukraine is just copying an American tank and a Russian tank, which was recently taken out of commission, which was I think the Comet, the little square box infantry fighting vehicle with a pop-up. It had carried up to 14 Comet launchers. It would fire and then discard. No, Ukraine is just a copycat, cheap knockoff. It's the Timu of Europe. And they've lost a bit of territory. Overall, the heavy fighting will continue. Now, according to Business Insider, a NATO-Russia war will be bloodier than Ukraine. And this is where they talk about the golden hour. Now, this was a senior Ukrainian officer said NATO would suffer heavier losses. Unprepared, believes that NATO is unprepared for any war with Russia. I don't believe that. I think this is one of those, hey, Putin, no. You got to rattle the cage and make people think that Putin is coming for you. But there's a few truths in here which matter. That is the golden hour. The first 60 minutes from the time you are shot to the time you are anesthetized. Now, this is not just anesthetized, but it's generally, full medical care. for the first 60 minutes determines survivability. Now for Russia, this is at least 70%, whereas in Ukraine this is down to 30% of combat injuries. Now that doesn't mean everybody's going to die, but when it comes to recovery, if you can recover 70% of your manpower, you're doing freaking fantastic. If you're recovering less than 50%, you're losing this one, chump. But the golden hour will not exist because it's a golden day or even a month for Ukraine. They cannot evacuate the old way, that is where they send in an ambulance, pick people up and leave, because the weather, right, the amount of, I suppose, disrespect. Once upon a time, there was both. Ukraine has lost all respect on the battlefield. But remember what I said yesterday about images? If you don't see the snow, it wasn't taken in winter, right? But the part about this is weather and poor visibility. They can't radio. Radio in is just an immediate call for Russian fire control to narrow in on your position. They don't decode the messages. They just go, oh, we've got a call in at this position here. Next thing you know, a couple of Russian artillery rounds are on that position. So, first responders can't go in. They can't use radio. They can't call in helicopters. Anything flying is going to be shot down if it can even fly, right? Poor visibility. They have to all train now to carry men out, which can take hours to reach the rear lines because of the increased range. They're no longer dealing with Russian artillery at 12 to 15 kilometres. They now have to deal with Russian artillery up to 30 kilometres from the front line. And of course, some robot solutions as ground robots are popular, but those systems aren't without their problems, such as vulnerability attack, breakdowns, and jamming. This is in a high-intensity conflict with Russia. It will be impossible that there'd be nobody stopping to see what they're shooting at. All they do is see movement, press that button, because you can't wait to find out if it's going to shoot you first, right? And of course, Ukraine is the one who's suffered an estimated... See, I'm not giving you a Russian source here, blokes, right? Yesterday, when they said it was Russia who suffered 400,000, no, it was Ukraine who suffered the 400,000 casualties. Of 100,000 of those are killed. They claim Russia's toll is grimmer, but Russia's losing over 1,000 troops a day. But you go to the battlefield casualties, and it's Ukraine who's losing 1,000 a day at least. And that was already back in 23. It's increased to an average of 1,500. And of course, with less. So you think, right? 1,500, that's 150 times. That's about 750 who are likely to die over the following months. You don't die immediately. They again claim Russia's lost over 1 million casualties. Many experts, of course, have debunked this. But the media has to report the information they are given, not the information they find out. Remember that. So, of course, there's a picture in the snow, cold weather, Ukrainian firefighters following the strike on Kharkiv. No context, but of course, they are reporting electricity out, that there's diplomacy still going on, government's trying to transform, Erdogan's putting phone call after phone call in, trying to get peace installed. But of course, the problem is that the Ukrainian government won't accept the peace deal, will accept a what they call an economic zone, but that economic zone is administrated by the Zelensky's hand-picked administrator. Like, you might as well just put you saw what happened last time Ukraine went into the Donbass and said, we are now the administrators, and over 100,000 deaths later, the Ukrainians were now facing a rebellion, and the West said, no, there's a war in the Donbass. It is the Russian invasion. And, of course, the real Russian invasion didn't occur until 2022. So they had to pave up and cover up and say a lot of glowing things about Captain Sky Shield because he's part of the international money mafia. But how to know who the ruler is? You criticize. And as soon as one says, silence that man, and that man is silenced by everybody else, you go, ha-ha, that's the real emperor, everybody. See fat man down the back in the dark room with the pile of skulls for a throne. Who knew? But, yes, the Liberal government or the Liberal opposition wants to silence. Oh, but he's the Nazi, but of course, silence the Liberal is speaking. So you cannot criticize the Zelensky in Czechoslovakia, but, oh, wait a minute. What about Russia? Russia. Oh no, the Russians, the evil ones. We have to criticize them. Of course, you have to blame the Russia for everything. That he's the leader of the Freedom Party. But part of the coalition. But opposition parties want to strip Akimov of his post, even though he's legally elected and the part of the majority coalition. Oh, but no. He criticized Zelensky. What did he say? No more money for that homeless bum who keeps asking for that homeless bum who plays the piano with his woohoo. But he makes his spy chief, who lies for a living. Oh, look, babyface, nice, honest man. You cannot criticize the man who obviously looks like he wears the SS. He has the Hugo Boss in the closet. Oh, and he loves, look, we've been killing the Russians and we'll keep killing the Russians. So this is what it's all about. It's him and the killing. He loves the killing. Of course, he will cry like baby when the Russian drone comes. He says, protect me. Oh, he loves the killing, but he won't put on the uniform and go to the front line. Oh, he loves the killing. But as long as it's not his women and children on the front lines, eh? As long as it's... But the Russians said they carried out a high-precision attack, hit their target with a hypersonic Kinzhal. Like I said yesterday, the big spear we've come long way since cavemen with the wooden spear. Now we build the big, mighty phallic, the big metal dick, and fling it at our enemies. But they hit their target in one massive and 6 group strikes. Now, group strikes, obviously a collection of missiles that included a hypersonic. So the massive one was Putin putting his fist in or boot into the Zelensky, and then 6 were probably these short to intermediate range rockets, according to Insider Report and the Institute of War. These were actually fired from S-400 launchers, showing that the S-400 is not just air defense, but a versatile intermediate missile. So if Russia wanted to, they could retrofit an S-500 or 550A and cruise it over Ukraine, and it will loiter up to an hour in low to sub-orbit as it slowly re-entries and it will basically look down, shoot down, and basically go, there is Ukraine, there's all this air traffic, and it will just go, ooh, look at this big target, lots of radar, boom, and Bye-bye British spy plane that is directing all the high-precision targets in. But, of course, they don't want to do that yet. But Russia is slowly giving us a look into what's happening and saying that the CIA was behind the attack on Putin's residence, because the CIA came out immediately and said, no, it wasn't an attack on your residence, it was an attack on this base. And the Russian says, a secret base that is not on the map? You're saying that is where you were attacking? So you directed the attack. You stole, the CIA. Trump, fire the CIA director now. He's a buffoon. Okay, you turn around. You don't turn around and tell them the target you were intending to hit, and say it wasn't the Putin residence, and then name some secret base that's not on the map. No, you go, oh no, just coincidence. Well, it went off target. Just deny, CIA, 70 years of deny, of course, when it comes out, Dulles and all these others, they don't get prosecuted for their war crimes. Operation Paperclip, secret deals with the Nazis, secret deals with the Russians, secret deals, hundreds of wallpapers still classified from World War II. Who's they protecting? The guilty, of course. But that is where we get to the situation on the battlefield. And it is not as intense as it can be. And they're admitting that. But what Ukraine is admitting through the newspapers to the audience that matters, that is the people who pay for these articles, who pay to have the truth fed to them, no matter how unpleasant it is, that Ukraine is a bad investment. That this Captain Sky Shield nonsense, which they originally brought up well before, is nothing more than a scam, to get you to buy outdated Soviet-era technologies from Ukraine. It is ludicrous at best. It is laziness. It is, again, when these missiles fail to protect Ukraine, they're going to double down on demands for their Sky Shield, right? That didn't protect from this. Now, of course, we don't know what the Patriot improved version is, because it's in Japan, Korea, Philippines. It's not in the. And maybe coming to Europe, but the Europeans keep saying, no, we're going to send it all to Ukraine. So, okay, you pay for it in full. And that's what this $200 billion really is all about, paying Ukraine's debts in full, because the US will no longer give them anything on credit, which means they're well above their GDP. Just like how Trump cut off China. And while China is collapsing, Iran is facing civil war. Venezuela is woke up Venezuela saw his face on the kill cam and said, "Oh, they know where I am. I better start talking with Trump." just everyday stuff. But one of these days, you've got to have the kill cam on Zelensky. I mean, that's the only way to resolve this problem. And because he does not, until he suffers the consequences of his actions, he and his fellows will keep wanting death. It's all about, to them, it's just about killing Russians. They don't care how it's done. They don't care who they sacrifice to do it. And sooner or later, they're coming for your kids, okay? The Eurofash will not stop until the Keir Starmer, the Macrons, the Merkels and their minions are out of office, right? And that is the sad reality. Thank you all for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. Please support the channel. Thank you to everybody who has. You can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, So, hi to my wonderful patrons over there on my RPG Patreon. Buy my books, buy my merch. Thanks to all those who bought my book. I'm actually got a nice little check, enough to buy a cup of coffee. Thank you very much, Lee. So, see you in the next video. All my links in the link tree. You know where to find it. Bye for now.